I'd like to now introduce our first panel discussion, Accelerating Green Hydrogen Adoption in India. And thank you so much, Mr. Popli, for being honorary chair of the session. And now I would like to ask other speakers. So Dr. Rashi Gupta, Batterywali. Dr. Rashi Gupta is Batterywali of India. She's our co-chair of Energy Storage Hub. And what is interesting that recently Dr. Rashi realized the first project including hydrogen and energy storage. So it will be very interesting to listen from her if hydrogen is competition of energy storage, or there is a synergy. I would like to also invite Shalin, who is founder and managing director at Advait Infratech. So welcome to the stage. Now I would like to invite Kapil Maleshwari, ED and CEO at Wellpsan New Energy, Renewable Energy and Green Hydrogen Development. So last time we met, you were at Reliance, now you changed to the new company. But I see the same positive energy. Yes, so Kapil, welcome. Please take a stage. I would like to invite Arnava Sinha, Vice President at Greenco. So you may remember him from our thumbs up photo from last year as well. And please remove the badge, dear Arnava. And is Sandeep already in the room? Not yet. So last but not least, let me welcome Anurag who is Business Head, Senior VP, Hydrogen Value Chain, Reliance Industries Limited. So actually, I was speaking about you with Frank Wouters. He said, you are the guy for hydrogen. Thank you so much. So we are almost complete. So I believe we can start the session. So as some of the speakers were not there when we were playing the video of CleanTech Business Club, one more.
Over the last couple of years, CleanTech Business Club created an independent leadership program as a unique, multifactorial, multi-stakeholder, and multinational think-do tank in the cleantech space. It's been bringing together trusted leaders in solar, cleantech, and other disruptive technology industries. It built leaders in financial community, investors, corporations, energy companies, and utilities, as well as political leaders and public opinion influencers, and work hand in hand on financial instruments and business models to scale up clean tech investments from billions to trillions while shaping the future today. In 2020, faced with COVID-19 crises, CleanTech Business Club leaders driven by the power of H2H blockchain and United DNA started Together We Are Stronger initiative and committed themselves to its manifesto, Declaration 2030, to jointly anticipate, shape, and lead together the clean tech decade. As together, we are more effective than apart. And now, united with the winners of the World CleanTech Awards, Solar Lights for Peace Partners, our friends, and hydrogen industry leaders, we are committed to empowering the clean tech decade together. By sharing our expertise and knowledge, bringing unique business and financial facilities, guiding decision makers and related stakeholders, showcasing successful case studies, we aim to lead the way towards regenerative development of the world. And we will make it by combining business with meaningfulness and joy, because together we are stronger. Thumbs up for CleanTech.
So actually, I think we will need to update this video and to make thumbs up for CleanTech and green hydrogen, yes? So as you could notice in the our video, we are helping to transform the world with CleanTech, but since last year also we united with the hydrogen leaders because we believe that this transformation should happen together, yes, by combining hydrogen and CleanTech expertise and industries to build green hydrogen economy. So I would like to give a floor to Vineet, who is the main moderator, and he's one of the best experts on green hydrogen in India. Yes, so you are the boss.
Thank you, Tomasz. Thank you, everyone, and a warm welcome to all the panelists here. I think I'm more thinking, and I'm very keen to understand more about the subject and nuances, how the things are happening in the country, because all of you bring to the table a very distinctive kind of an experience and expertise. So without any delay, I think let us start with the kind of questions which we would be asking. But before that, I think we can have a minute of round of introductions from the panelists themselves. I'll ask each panelist to say a few comments. Please don't take more than 1 minute. Just concise yourself to 60 seconds, between 30 to 60 seconds, and then we can just start on having one-on-one questions with each of the panelists. So I think we can start with Dr. Rashi Gupta first, the lady on the panel.
Thank you so much. I'm Dr. Rashi Gupta, Managing Director, Vision Mechatronics. We're more into battery energy storage systems and primarily lithium. But we've recently also expanded our horizons into hydrogen, or rather green hydrogen. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. I mean, I've been into the clean tech industry since maybe more than a decade now, and just understanding how things are going on and how this energy transformation is actually taking place. It's quite a new era that we all are seeing now. So it's going to be interesting to see how storage technologies, not just for that matter hydrogen or just battery energy storage, is going to play the new tech game today. So yeah, I'm looking forward. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, and pleasure to be here. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Anurag Pandey, and I'm heading the hydrogen value chain business in Reliance Industries. I've been with Reliance close to, or in fact, I just crossed 10 years in Reliance. And as many of you will know that in Reliance, about 3 years ago, the chairman announced in one of our AGM that our aspiration to move to new energy business, create a new energy business, basically, transforming, as Tomasz was talking about earlier, the way we use energy in every sector, right? I mean, for that, as earlier the Frank was talking about, bringing the Reliance's philosophy of affordable excellence to the new energy as well. So we are starting from solar, and solar, wind is also one form of a solar energy. So let's say wind included as well, to generate green electricity. And then that green electricity obviously can be converted into hydrogen. And as you know, hydrogen as a vector can then create electricity through fuel cell or many chemicals and the materials as such, right? So we are covering that part of the new energy value chain through hydrogen. And then of course, fuel cell, hydrogen engine for the automotive sector. And recently, Chairman again announced about the bioenergy also, right? So we are literally looking at this future where we are not dependent on the fossil conventional source of energy, moving to more cleaner and sustainable energy sources. And we hope to do the same thing like what we have done to the digital world through Geo. So I'll stop with that. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Shalin, Sheth, Managing Director and Chairman of Advait Infratech Limited. We are an Ahmedabad-based company, and we are into the products primarily working as a import substitutions. So we do manufacture such products, and we also do the EPC services. Recently, we have entered into the green hydrogen segment in 2021-22. We have been doing one of the India's important project in Tehri THDC, wherein we'll be commissioned the project for generation of hydrogen and putting into the microgrid. It will be completed in the month of November 2023. We have also put up our manufacturing plant to produce the electrolyzers with the initial capacity of 100 megawatt in Ahmedabad. And to augment our capacity, we have tied up with a Gujarat-based company called Shri. It's a government institutions, and Chinese leading company Gofu for the technical tie-up to take our vision ahead. We'll be able to offer the dispensers, electrolyzers, and fuel cells by year 2024 to the market. I would like to just put a very small anecdote. As Anurag ji talked about the ambitious plan of the Reliance, where in one of the interview, Mukesh Ambani said that we'll be producing hydrogen with $1 per kg. So I was just trying to resemble with my my teenage days when I was very, maybe I was teen, maybe about 9-10 years old. I was asking to my senior that this fossil fuel is a very depleted source. So one day it is going to be, depleted. So how the world is going to run? So I'm very happy that I'm into the same field today, that we are working for the transformation of the fossil fuel. And at that time, I remember the price of the petrol was 6 to 7 rupees per kg, per liter. And now it's about 11 times. It is 1100 percentage. So I think it's a matter of time where the price difference, or we're talking about the reduction on the hydrogen cost by 300%. I think it's a matter of years. That's what I believe. Thank you.
Mr. Popli.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you. I am K.S.Popli. I retired with Indian Renewable Energy Development Agency 4 years back. Then I worked with International Solar Alliance. I must admit I have no experience in green hydrogen. But simply put, what I understand is you require, hydrogen is available. I mean, people are already working. You have a production of 120 million tons of hydrogen already. Now the question is what you call it green. One question to the panelists is that one of the experts said, let us not worry about green. Let the consumption, the demand for hydrogen go up, because at least the infrastructure will develop for it. The compression technology, the cooling technology, all those things will develop, and of course we can convert it into green as the renewable energy prices come down. So from that perspective, you look, appears to be a little simpler, but it is not so. We still require what would be the drivers going forward for green hydrogen. That is very, very important, because people have been working for 2 years. Of course, those with deep pockets, maybe Reliance, Adani, they would find a way out. But the smaller players, I mean, they need drivers for it. If you require large number of players, because if you require a transformation, that will not happen with 2 players or 3 players. You require number of players, because what we had seen in how the solar technology evolved or how the wind technology evolved, we had so many players, and then they will consolidate. That is okay. But initially we had a large number of players, and that is how it spread across. And then the prices came down and this became viable. Imagine when it was 15 rupees, 16 rupees, and people were coming here. We never believed that this is going to happen. Same thing happened with battery technology. Now, similarly in hydrogen also, we have 3 times the cost for green hydrogen. And of course, we all understand that electrolyzers cost will come down as the demand goes up. And all countries have started producing electrolyzers in their country, because they did not want to depend on one country. And this is widely available. Then what is very important about hydrogen is that if you have to decarbonize, you require green hydrogen, because there are sectors which cannot be decarbonized without it, and this is one which can be transported. It has a high energy density. So all those advantages are there, and that is why, I mean, everywhere we are working on it. This is a new technology. not a new technology, but a new form of energy, which we will be utilized more, and we have to green it. So we would like to understand from the panelists, from the experts, I mean, how do we reduce the barriers? Are there any regulatory or policy tweaking that is required for taking it forward? What is it that we require for transportation, for compression? What is it that what is the ecosystem that you think that will be required going forward? And what is it that we require for making India an export hub? So these are some of the things that I think. I mean, sorry for this, but these are few of the things that I feel, I mean, we should be discussing in this 1 hour, and that should become more interesting for everybody. We had one presentation earlier wherein he very clearly brought out, of course, the existing pipeline is much better than transporting electricity, and he said about offshore wind. Now, the issue with offshore wind is that we were trying to work out. 6 years back, we thought we will have our first offshore wind. I mean, not we, but the authorities that were there, they thought. And there were some experts who said, you should not be working on it. It is too expensive. It looks to be, there are too many challenges. This was 6 years back. This was 6 years back when all large public sector undertakings entered into a MOU. And the target set was 4 years. So I had said, sir, even if we do it in 6 years, it will be a big achievement, and it has not taken off. So, of course, the efforts are on. I am not saying the countries like Germany, like UK, they have gone ahead in this. The prices have also come down. But yes, now is the time when you have a technology that could be used for maybe producing green hydrogen. Maybe the prices have come down. There is a time when a new ecosystem will have to be developed. I mean, a new technology like offshore wind will not come for one project. You will have to develop a whole ecosystem for it. And similarly, what I feel is the ecosystem for green hydrogen, for hydrogen is available. It is still existing in India. So what we need is only a conversion part of thing. And the best part is that excess hydrogen, excess renewable energy can be utilized for generation. It can be stored for longer period. It can be stored for longer duration. Longer means for seasonal duration also, you can store hydrogen compared to batteries, which would be for few hours or few days. But it has a lot of inherent advantages, and that is why we are all here to hear from all the experts on this. Thank you.
So maybe I can make some comment because it was very interesting input from Mr. Popli. And what we discussed actually in Europe, I started 20 years ago, and solar industry only started when we invented feed-in tariff system. And I think we should discuss together what will be the feed-in tariff system for green hydrogen. I mean, not feed-in tariff, but something, you know. Like, so.
Kapil, yeah.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kapil Maheshwari. I'm the MD and CEO for Welspun New Energy. Welspun Energy was the largest renewable developer till 2016. That portfolio was divested to Tata Power. This present portfolio is largely with a green hydrogen platform. And because it is green, renewables forms an integral part of it. On a personal front, for an introduction, I'm in this field for last 20 plus years, and that's all of my career. So, I haven't done anything but what Tomasz says as CleanTech. So, possibly various elements within the CleanTech. It could be manufacturing of cell and module. It could be selling inverters. It could be starting an EPC or an IPP. Or now it could be building an hydrogen platform for that matter. Touching upon point what Mr. Popli just mentioned, at least India as in country is presently getting an opportunity not to be a follower, but at least on par or to be a leader. Given there is nobody which is far ahead compared to us, either in technology or in size or in talent or in capital available for green hydrogen. We are probably the third largest consumer of hydrogen as a whole globally. So we presently consume around 6 to 7 million tons of hydrogen. So not that the ecosystem doesn't exist. Technology exists for a very, very long time. Electrolysis process is decades old. Everybody has studied probably during engineering 30, 40 years back also it was taught how water electrolysis can happen. So we are at a stage or a juncture where if we can leapfrog, we can not be a follower like other things. We may take a lot of pride in what we have achieved in renewables, both in terms of solar and wind. But we always say that we missed the bus in some aspect of it. Here is an opportunity where we can, possibly do everything and do on par with everybody in the world, or at least ahead of them also. So that with that ambition, possibly we are discussing. Coming to your question, what Tomasz just mentioned, I think we are doing a lot of things on supply side. There is central government schemes, there are states which are coming up with different incentive mechanisms, etc. Possibly a little bit on the demand side incentives as well. If that can be created, that could initially drive the market before we see that the gap between the gray and green can be bridged. And that will certainly help in the overall kickoff of this hydrogen ecosystem.
Thanks, Kapil. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Arnav Sinha. I work as a Vice President for the Greenco Group, looking after the green molecules business, which is basically green hydrogen and its derivatives. As an organization, we have made our journey over the last 15 years or so, going from producing plain vanilla, starting with hydro actually, then moving on to wind, finally onto solar, and then on to solving for intermittency of Waaree through our pumped hydro storage projects. So in a way that completes our green electrons journey in being able to provide for round-the-clock RE power, which then moves us to the green molecules part, which is green molecules business that I am a part of, and we are looking at green hydrogen and its derivatives. Now, as the world moves toward an energy transition, we look toward
transformation, energy transformation, not transition.
Yeah, so transformation. As the world moves towards energy transformation, we look toward Mother Nature, right? The sun, the wind, the water resources. One thing to note here is that they are not fuel. So we also look for something that can be a fuel, and that's where green hydrogen comes into the picture. And as an organization and as an individual, I'm quite convinced that that's the way to go. Just want to touch upon the topic of the day today, which is Quo Vadis green hydrogen. Literally translates to, where are you going, green hydrogen? And Quo Vadis, I just want to pick on that word. It's actually a movie in 1950s, if I'm not wrong. And why that trivia I would want to mention here is that green hydrogen in India is almost as old as that 1950s movie. We had green hydrogen in India in early 1960s, and that was a big one. That was almost 200 megawatts of electrolyzers at that time. That was in the Nangal plant, the fertilizer plant that we now know. The water for that or the power for that was supplied from the Bhakra Dam. Now, we are going back to that 60 years. The technology has evolved, but the important thing now is that the costs need to come down so that the trilemma, as we know, the energy trilemma, which is availability, security, plus affordability, plus sustainability, that has to be met. So that's something that I would like to look forward to from this discussion today. How do we maintain, or how do we manage that balance between all the different legs of that trilemma? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. So let me now start putting some questions. We'll keep on asking questions as the time permits. So let me start with Dr. Rashi. So first and the very basic question, battery versus green hydrogen.
Okay, so I put a question back to you. Why it should be battery versus green hydrogen, and why it cannot be battery and green hydrogen?
It can definitely be.
Yeah, so let's collaborate. And that's what, that makes sense, Yeah. As I said, India is a very unique and a very diverse land. We have very different energy requirements. We have very, very unique applications across the globe. or rather even across our country for that matter. Our geography is so big that what happens in North doesn't happen in South. So why do we need to compete? Can we not collaborate and be successful? We all say together we are stronger, so together we are even successful. So let's collaborate with multiple technologies together, come to, all these technologies together, whether it, and I don't even say that there has to be a competition in battery technology also. No competition required. You have enough on the platter for all technologies to come to showcase and to converge to a unity where you will actually have all energy sources coming to the same point. At the end of it, we all need energy.
Correct.
We all need electricity. We have to find a successful mode of technology where we have a techno-commercially good offer. Because at the end of the day, everyone wants their ROI to be the least, right? So let's collaborate. When you look at hydrogen together in a silo and you look at just battery technology in its own same, they don't make sense on the pricing. Just like he said, it's a few hours and it's long duration. So when we collaborate together, it makes more sense. We already did 5 projects in Europe where we have a combination of battery, hydrogen, wind, solar, all together and making it a microgrid. That makes more sense. So I would again say collaborate and not compete.
Thank you. Thank you for your answer. Very apt. I think both these technologies have a lot to play for the India's energy transformation so that we actually receive and achieve the transition, what we are aiming for.
No transition. Transition is history. It's transformation now.
Okay.
You have less than a decade to achieve your climate goals, or else human race will be extinct.
So there's another follow-up question, Dr. Rashi, for you here, is that you have been following up a lot and also been a strong proponent for the suitable policies and programs to be adopted in the battery arena. So how important it is in the green hydrogen vector, you see, as a green hydrogen vector, that suitable policies needs to be in place because hydrogen requires transportation and even to a next level than what battery requires or the battery ecosystem creation requires. So there's a large demand or a need in India from the regulatory perspective that needs to be in place. So your comment, quick comment on that and how it can be achieved.
Where there is a will, there is a way. So if the government is pro-hydrogen, you will surely have policies in place sooner or later. Now the question is in India about the right timing, okay? So if we get the right timing and if we can align our policies with the market forces, you will have the best outcome in hydrogen. Number 2, yes, definitely a lot of new policies are required. At this point of time, even though we already have hydrogen, I'm not considering the color of the hydrogen right now. We have many colors of the hydrogen. But if we need to go for looking for effective transportation and storage of hydrogen, we need a manufacturing push in India. What we are today, India has traditionally been a mindset of a trading mindset is something that we are very strong with, and we've excelled in that. Now it's the time to excel in the manufacturing mindset also. PLI is good, but by the time PLI actually takes shape and it's on ground, we see the effect. We still have at least 3 to 4 more years for the existing PLIs on battery advanced chemistries and even for that matter solar and electronics PLI. Same way, something has to come for hydrogen, but not exactly a PLI. You need more tax incentives. You don't need subsidies. I'm not a very proponent of subsidies, even for any sector for that matter. We need more incentivization, not in the form of subsidies. And what we need to also do from the industry perspective and technology perspective is to make this viable, commercially viable without the subsidies. Very tough game. We need a financial innovation also. I mean, since Popli ji is from a financial background, I'm again repeating this, that we need to have a financial innovation and a lot on the insurance. So when you look from the policy perspective, I would say incentivization, good financial model, which is not in place. See, all these people who are financing, no, they always feel, oh, this technology is growing. How do I bet my money on this? Will we get our ROIs in place? I mean, the standard questions which are there from ages and ages and ages. Energy is transforming. When is the money going to transform, man? Money is the biggest energy, isn't it? Without money, nothing is fueling. So money needs to also transform now. So the way our existing financial system needs a complete overhaul. It needs a complete change in the mindset of the bankers and in the lending institutions. I mean, I'm going to get a lot of thrashing after this, because I have been talking about change in the financial institutions. So I'm going to get the beating of this. But the point is, if we don't change now, if we will not be ahead of the curve. And if we are not ahead of the curve, we will not make it to the 2030 climate goals and, the energy transformation mix that we're talking about. That's not going to happen. So a robust financial inclusion, including newer technologies, someone has to bet on them, right? I mean, as an industry, we are betting some financial institutions or some kind of a fund has to come to bet on this. Insurance has to come in place, which is not there at all. And then we need to have a policy which can help creating more robust infrastructure and upgrading the existing infrastructure. There is a problem here also. I'm going to take one more minute on this, where we talk of creating new infrastructure every time and we forget that there's so much of existing infrastructure which can be used again, or maybe, there could be multiple things done with the same infrastructure. We are not thinking on those lines. New is easy, right? And India has a mindset of whatever is easy is, let's just do that. So a shift there also on the policy front to include the existing infrastructure. That is when diversity and inclusion comes to its complete terminology, that you include the existing infrastructure also, utilize that to the max. So these are a few of my policy points.
Thank you, Dr. Rashi. So we move on to Anurag now. You guys have been the front runners, flag bearers for domestically manufacturing a lot of things and making things a success. So everyone's aware of your huge announcements in batteries, in green hydrogen, in bioenergy. So in terms of green hydrogen, if you see domestically, the demand from fertilizer industries and the refineries, it might take some time to come up for the not so bigger players who are going to enter into the market. By that time, where is the demand domestically? If we are only focused in India as a domestic market, which are the key sectors you think can offer demand to a lot of players who are either going to sell electrolyzers or who are going to manufacture or produce hydrogen?
Yeah, so typically if you look at the history in Reliance's business, we typically don't look at the market and go and build solutions. What we do is like we build the affordable solution and the markets get created, right? Well, in case of the energy, you already have a solution in terms of the fossil. So when you're looking at that fossil solution and available at a certain cost, the answer is very pretty simple, right? I mean, if you can match that cost, why people would be, not be willing so to move to the new energy sources. So the idea would be to look at the price parity, the cost parity. And once you're able to achieve that, hydrogen is not new to the industry, barring few applications, let's say the mobility application where you're talking about, right? And there also, if you can smartly reduce the barrier, right? So for me, the mobility is mobility. As long as the wheels are, moving, the kgs are being moved, that's the mobility. Whether it is happening on the electric powertrain or traditional IC engines, doesn't matter that, from that factor. As she was talking about, why can't we use the existing infrastructures, right? So that's why we launch, let's say, at least we are demoing the hydrogen engine-based trucks and the buses, right? So what happens, there's a whole ecosystem, and you don't have to go to new ecosystems. Having said that, it doesn't mean that the electric-based mobility is not good. It's efficient, it's unique in many other senses. But when it happens, there is already infrastructure which you can use, right? So rather than looking at whether a particular application is ready to pick up, let's say hydrogen, we are focusing on more on getting the cost of hydrogen to an extent where it has the cost parity, where it can, easily, at least I don't have to convince the customer that, follow this model, this model, this model, and then, hydrogen makes sense. It's crystal clear that, at this price, you can simply switch over. And if there is any requirement, you don't go and change anything for the sake of new. Use the existing infrastructure, like what I talked about, the hydrogen engine, right? You don't have to retrain your drivers. You have all the mechanics available on the highways and everywhere, right? So I think it's a combination of both. You look at, reduce the barrier and obviously reach the cost parity, the price parity of the existing solution, and you will have all the markets, which will, the traditional markets will move, and then there will be new applications as well on this.
Following up on that, you mentioned transportation as a very important segment which Reliance is working upon. So we are aware your buses are already up and running on the hydrogen fuel. So what are the plans or the vision? Are you going to focus a lot in developing these high transportation, heavy duty vehicles for the country, which will be using the hydrogen fuels, or still, because even today in the morning I was reading that yes, hydrogen is there, battery is there, but then a comparison comes on the cost. Because I'm sure, as you rightly pointed out, the time when you can bring down the cost, you are there. But that time is little far away, what we, as a part of the industry, we are seeing. For that meanwhile, or the meantime, what is your strategy around that?
No, I mean, earlier, let me use this word transition again. While this transition is happening, you have to make some solution available, right? So for example, you're moving to a cleaner mobility. And the cleaner mobility can happen on, let's say, battery electric way, or it can happen with the hydrogen also, or it can happen on the hybrid model, the hybrid also, right? You have to ultimately, if you have to go to the 10th floor, you have to start from, from the first floor itself, right? You can't reach to the 10th floor directly. So in that sense, what we thought is like, at least for the India sense, right? Where the automotive, the vehicle costs are so low in comparison to the rest of the world, where if you look at their diesel vehicle versus the hydrogen fuel cell vehicle or hydrogen, vehicles per se, the delta is very narrow typically in the Western world. That's not case in India. The trucks or the buses, what we typically use are so low in comparison to when you build a new bus on the fuel cell hydrogen, let's say capex recovery would take years. So why not to, just simply change the fuel? The rest of the body and the technology can remain same. And that is where we have demonstrated at least. Right. And we don't have any, let's say, plan to become an automotive company per se. We just want to demonstrate that this technology works. And then the, let's say, automotive industries and, that particular ecosystem where we can supply hydrogen, or the players like us can supply the energy like what we are doing today, even supplying the petrol and diesel to this market, right? So the barrier is reduced in that. The cost difference between the existing vehicles and, the hydrogen vehicle, which is as clean as your other vehicles, the tail end of the tailpipe does not emit anything, right? So that delta, the capex difference is quite low for the customer. For example, even an existing BS4 equivalent vehicle can be converted to a BS6 equivalent vehicle by just retrofitting some part of the technology, and that is what we have done together with our partners. As I said, we don't have any plan to become an automotive company, but to demonstrate and build the confidence, we are running multiple vehicles within our own campuses in Gujarat and in Bangalore and other places. From the truck, various category, 20 ton to 35 tons and all those categories, as well as passenger buses as well. So the idea is reduce the barrier and also reduce the cost, which in hydrogen case, I just want to say, the other part of this expo is fairly, largely responsible for that cost, because 80% plus of the cost actually comes from the electricity if you're talking about the, water electricity-based hydrogen. Obviously, there is a bio-derived hydrogen as well. But from the water electricity point of view, it's the cost of the electricity. And as again she was talking about, we have to look at the financial part of it. Because if you look at that financial part of the major cost, probably 50+% of the cost is literally the finance cost in that electricity. Same goes for the hydrogen as well. So if you can take care of that, look at that investment differently, then you will have this transformation which everybody is looking for.
Right. On a lighter note, so what is your recipe for $1? Is it just working on the RE thing? Sure. Just on a lighter note. So we know that you have plans for manufacturing and you're already there. There's a lot of positive interest we see currently in India, like a lot of domestic companies are coming up, startups are coming up, and they are all getting into the manufacturing mode. In fact, if it would be right to say that hydrogen is being run by more entrepreneurial or the startup kind of an environment, not only in India, but globally. But what are the few key challenges you are seeing? Or are there no challenges you are seeing, particularly from the hydrogen sector, from the regulatory and the policy side? Or what extra you would demand from the policy makers or the regulators should be there, particularly for the startups to come up and we set up a good manufacturing base and finally become the exporters?
Thank you. What we see that the time ahead, like what exactly has happened in solar, why the solar has been successful is not only because of the government initiatives, or is not only because of the need or demand, but if you look at broadly, because a lot of MSME sector has been included in the financial inclusion of solar. And that has given a tremendous growth. Like you look at the fossil fuel, the entry cost is so high that only limited players are working from years. And it is going on its own way. So it is not promoting any innovation. In solar, you can see that many MSME, anyone in an individual level, people are integrated into the solution offering, maybe trading, maybe product offering, maybe EPC kind of things. So what we see, the time ahead for the hydrogen, it is not a matter of only demand. It is a matter of the kind of need, because that will be a kind of exigency and urgency will come. And as I said before, the time will come when the cost of the fossil fuel and the cost of hydrogen will also demerge. And as the companies like Reliance is also talking about with the concept of bringing the hydrogen cost to the lower these things, many MSMEs will be a part of the total ecosystem. So we have been always a company who is promoting or working on import substitutions innovation, and we have done in past, so that we have put up our first unit of manufacturing of electrolyzers now, and we'll also initially work for also offering the other like fuel cell and also dispenser on assembly mode. And I'm sure that our government is very proactive just to take care of the national interest. So I believe that hydrogen is not just a matter of transformation, it is a matter of geopolitical need, it is a matter of energy security. It is also a matter of showing the strength of the nation. So in next 3 to 4 years, when government, our hydrogen policy is saying, by end of the phase 1, which is in 2025, and the second phase will start by 26, where the fertilizers and chemical industries will find hydrogen in availability with an economical way, I strongly believe the time will come. So in terms of government's support, I think they have offered the first incentive scheme of manufacturing of electrolyzers, where we as Advait are also going to participate and bid for that PLI scheme. I think such many more schemes will be required, a multi-fold level, many schemes. That's all I will say at the moment. Thank you.
And because you are there, you are manufacturing domestically, you are going to participate there. What is the role of innovation? And I'm talking about more innovation from India perspective. More research and development needs to be there. Globally, a lot of things are happening to stack up the efficiencies of the electrolyzers, working upon the new cells, new technologies. So what should be the focus, and where do you see the key point should be there, particularly from the angle of an innovation that needs to be there in the country?
Like if you look at in the field of electrolyzers and maybe fuel cell, The innovation is a core thing that everybody talking, the kind of electrolyzers that will emerge, what will be the cheapest technology, which technology the raw material will be available, where the rarer material will not be used. So these are the issues that is going to be across the arena for the years to come. But what is more important is the integration and availability of the newest technology to the people at large. So government should work that how the innovation and the technology is available to manufacture for the larger chunk of people. And people like us, we are not the masters of innovation, but we are the masters of implementations. And I am focusing that we'll be able to get the opportunities where the innovation is available to us to enhance faster, better, and cheaper. And we are confident for that.
Thank you. So I come to you, Kapil. Your experience in the RE sector, and you have been implementing projects, doing PPAs, a lot of other things in the clean energy, and you have seen the sector grow. Here, the biggest elephant in the room, again, is the infrastructure and the kind of RE integration which is required. We are talking about 50 times of what we have as a country done in the last so many years, and we want to do in the 5 years. So how are we going to address it? Or are we going to stuck to a point that where infrastructure is going to be a challenge and become an impeding factor? What should be the roadmap country should follow?
One of the key challenge in the whole scheme of thing is we all started off the hydrogen production with the ISTS waiver. That was one of the trigger point when it came in February 2022 policy. Now for that, getting the whole network, the whole green energy corridor, what is spoken about is very, very crucial. And that is also spoken to an extent of, let's say, 181 gigawatt right now. We are talking 125 gigawatt just for hydrogen if we have to achieve 5 million tons kind of in capacity as part of our hydrogen mission by 2030. So one of the key challenge remains the CTU availability. Even if you look at the whole ecosystem at the ports, CTU should be available at all ports where we are targeting them to be in hydrogen hubs. So we have already declared 3 of them as hydrogen hubs. And at this moment, there is no CTU which is right now available. Exactly. At least one of the ports has the TBCB bit done, and then possibly implementation has started, but the other 2, there is no CTU at the port for that matter. Infrastructure is a challenge, but I would say we are probably better suited outside one of the Asian country which is pretty fast in infrastructure, but better suited compared to many other countries from the western side to implement that infrastructure. We have a grid which is very, very stable. So, you know, the people are struggling right now to feed a lot of intermittent power. We are still able to manage it to a large extent, even with the present renewable capacity. We can even do more from a renewable capacity addition. On an infra side, what is required from a renewable, presently, I would say, look at from an hydrogen perspective that there are these countries which are more supply-centric, and there are these countries which are more demand-centric. So if you look at supply-centric, it is Australia, India, Middle East. Probably you can look at some of those, Morocco, Oman, part of that as well. And if you look at demand, it is Europe, Japan, Korea, Singapore, US. The things are folding with IRA, and it could be demand and supply both within the US itself. So if you look at that, those countries, we are, probably in form of infrastructure, what is required? Do you have the right skill set and manpower? Yes, because we have been implementing around 15 gigawatt of renewable. Many other Middle Eastern countries haven't done a gigawatt a year also. So we are probably far better and ahead there. Financing for creating that infrastructure exists. There are a lot of strategic long-term patient capital to, pure financing institutions also have been, willing to consider investing in the Indian renewable story. They have done it, and there are still platforms which are coming up. Land, pretty, a lot of land is available within the country, unlike other places which are island countries, etc. So, we have availability of land, availability of resources. We have both wind and solar. So, that makes our job easy in compared to some other countries where it is heavily dependent on either wind or either solar. Take an example, UK. They are largely dependent on wind. We can do both. So that gives us an edge overall. And all the ecosystem, now from a renewable perspective, at least developers have seen, they've grown, they've understood the nature of the game. So that where I would say probably we are not near, we are pretty far ahead in terms of going to that from an infrastructure perspective. Yes, challenges lies. I said challenge in terms of CTU. Challenge also in terms of understanding the regulatory frameworks is a little bit of a challenge. What is there in the GNA regulation? How do you interpret that also is a little bit of a challenge. Challenge also lies in terms of land availability, both from a perspective of installing this 125 gigawatt just as an addition, and if countries looking at 500 gigawatt by 2030, the whole infrastructure at the ports, which is required if we have to be an export hub, and if we look at that, the kind of infrastructure, not only from electricity perspective, it is water, it is jetties for liquid. So all of that infrastructure would also be required, and that to an extent it is present, and to an extent it has to be created.
Very well said. You also touched upon when you were making your initial remarks on the demand. So actually, there's a lot of things happening on announcements are being made, projects are being announced, but on ground we are seeing very little demand, and there are even MOUs being signed on the demand side. So how do you perceive it? And wherein we have already set a target for ourselves, and we are saying by 2030 we'll have this much, and 25 also we have a fairly good kind of a plan, and with the kind of PLI schemes coming up, and we are saying that India as a country would require 25 gigawatt of electrolyzer manufacturing capacity, 25 onwards. So that has to feed from some demand. So what are your comments on that demand? And how, I think everybody says that government has to create the demand, but I think how? Because there have been talks, a lot of talks around the hydrogen purchase obligation coming up, but nothing formulated have come up. Lot of times in media it has come up that it is coming, but it hasn't.
So I won't touch upon the point of GHCO, the Green Hydrogen Compliance Obligation, because we have seen a lot of back and forth on that. But to answer your question on the demand, demand in the beginning, as I said, would not be possibly from domestic. And everybody who's working on a larger scale, I mean, you have seen, major refinery of fertilizer players are yet not adopting to that. And with a larger reason, see, you have to look at this sector from two different angles. It's a mix of people who have been habitual of working in renewables, which is a 25 years PPA, fixed price tariffs, etc. And it is then the hydrocarbon or the oil and gas side of the sector, which is habitual of instant markets. How do I manage forex risk? How do I manage indexation, etc. And there's no defined indexation for the hydrogen pricing at this moment. So it has to create a balance from what needs to be done from a long-term offtake perspective versus what can be done with an indexation. So demand in the beginning, I would say for a larger cause, of course, there are a lot of MOUs signed, and you yourself said that the action on the ground is very, very little to that. If that remains a fact, and demand on the larger side to other countries is because, yes, they also have, like us, green transformation, energy security to their point, but they have probably some carbon taxes and penalties in place which could make this a little more attractive compared to what you are able to produce at a higher price here. So, and then gradually the demand could be within the country itself.
Thank you. So I have been told that we are running short of time. We have already over. So my panelists are now. So I think you have been working and a lot in the export side. You have interest on the export side. There's a lot of competition coming up from MENA, Cuba, and a lot of other countries. And even I was reading one of the IEA reports which even mentioned that the hydrogen currently numbers which were given that the hydrogen which will be coming from India, it's going to be very, very costly, even costlier than what the hydrogen can be there from even South Africa, Brazil, and other countries. So how are we going to meet or face that competition so we become a export hub?
We can do two things. We can either be scared of that, or we can do something to negate that, right? I mean, first of all, the assumption that ours will be costlier than what is coming from other places, including Saudi, including Australia or the South America, it's not necessarily true. And I think Kapil had touched upon it earlier. See, when we are talking about green hydrogen or its derivatives such as green ammonia, of course, they are a commodities business. But then on the upstream side of it, it's not commodities. It's actually infra and manufacturing. Infra in terms of solar and wind, manufacturing in terms of storage as well as electrolyzers. So if we can indigenize those to an extent, as maximum extent possible, that infra cost can come down. Now the infra itself will have to be run with as a separate business model than the commodities. Those players who could decouple the two would reap the benefits, right? And in our experience, what we have seen is that the set of assumptions that they make when comparing prices of what India would come up with versus the other places, they're trying to put everyone in the same bucket. It's not true. It's not necessarily the case, right? We have certain advantages. If we can leverage those, I'm pretty confident that as Indian developers, if we take green ammonia, for example, we will be able to produce some of the lowest cost green ammonia, which will still meet the most stringent norms as far as emissions is concerned. So then, it doesn't matter what people are saying at this moment. When the first plant comes up and the first consignment of green ammonia gets delivered, that's when I think we will see the proof. I'm very positive about it.
So are we. And in terms of ports, I'll just take two questions. Tomasz is giving me the looks to close the session.
I also have some questions.
Okay, I'll just ask one question. Like in terms of Indian ports, I don't see other than Kochi port working a lot around it. Since you have a interest in the international export business for the green hydrogen, what our ports needs to do? What our port authority needs to do? The kind of infrastructure.
So see, the ports are actually, some of those ports are actually very adept at handling ammonia. Of course, it's been all about, in terms of import purposes, that can be turned around pretty easily. What we don't have in some of those ports is actually the power evacuation or the power management process, which needs to be built. Now, that's something that probably individual players will find it difficult to do, and that's where a little bit more on a push on the policy side is required. But again, at the same time, we also believe that that's happening. Now, the whole, if we wait for all the infrastructure to be built and then we start, we'll be too far behind, right? So we'll have to, everything has to happen in parallel, and only then we will be there as a front runner. So hope that, everything is happening in parallel, and we have to just trust each other, join hands, and be there.
So my last question to Mr. Popli here would be, only 4% of the projects globally are said to have achieved financial closures after being announced. So you have seen the journey of RE projects, and we were 10 years back, I remember I was working with you, and the same problem was there, even to the solar sector and wind sector. How the journey for the green hydrogen should be driven upon?
Yes, I mean, I listened to each one of you very, very carefully. And what I really found was that there is a need for actually creating demand for green hydrogen, right? Demand for green hydrogen. Where it can be created is maybe in transport sector. You have some fueling stations. You start doing for long distance trucking. That would be one solution that would be comparable. If there is some incentive required, that should be possible, maybe for putting up the fueling station. The other would be, we had seen, I mean, we started with tax credits for solar and wind. Then we went to generation-based incentive. Then we went to viability gap funding. And then it was at par. Here, what I feel is, and then in biofuels, we started with blending. Initially, nobody believed ethanol production was costlier and then was not there at all. And then they said, you will be allowed to blend it, and the attractive price was given. So people started shifting to it. So probably if, I don't know, experts are here, if blending is possible, if you mandate, so that mandate has to come. Maybe if you think fertilizer plants need to put in 5% of, convert their ammonia into 5% green ammonia, or similarly steel or cement industry, if that is feasible, that will drive it forward. And then whatever, I mean, small incentives government would be able to announce, but that is how the market will be driven. The other thing is that you may not do anything for 2 years. Then you will be behind the curve. The cost will still come down. I mean, what we had seen in solar was, at times, why 175 gigawatt was delayed by 1 or 2 years was that when the bidding happened, the last bid that you saw was probably at 3 rupees 50 paisa, and it was very clear that the next bid, as the trend was, the next bid would be at 3 rupees 20 paisa. So the finance director would say, let us wait. Why not wait? So similarly, but then you finally lend behind the curve. I mean, you lend up importing from China, and then you had to again incentivize to come up with PLI scheme, and again you have to compete with them. So if you have to, this is a game of technology also. So if you have to be ahead of it, you will have to spend money right now, create the infrastructure, give the necessary incentives, and when we know that there is a huge market, we know that you can be benefited, you know that technology is there, manpower is there, skilled people are there, we have a huge domestic demand. It is for the policy makers to take it forward.
Thank you, sir.
That is it.
Over to you, Tomasz.
Okay,
Thank you.
so first I would like to ask all the audience to stay for some moment. At the end, we'll make a family photo also with the speakers and with the guests. Yes, because I think we can only make this transformation, not energy transition, but transformation happen with all people around. And I will ask you for the very short answer, okay? So as I was mentioning, in order to make solar growth 1,000 times during 20 years, we had feed-in tariff. Yes, so let's say this was like a holy grail for solar. And very shortly, everybody from you, the last will be Vineet. Please tell us, how do you think? What will be the holy grail for green hydrogen? Very short.
Holy grail of hydrogen. Interesting question, Tomasz. I think human energy will be the holy grail of hydrogen because we all actually are going to work on it, right? And that's the problem. We are not working on it. We're not working on technologies the way we should be. And we also need an energy overhaul. And I mean, all of us, including industry, academia, skill sets, then policymakers, infrastructure, R&D, everyone. So I think the human energy has to be the holy grail of hydrogen or any technology for that matter.
Okay, another.
Yeah, I think, as I said, we have to look at the source of the, the cost being higher right now. And, I go back always to the electricity, right? I mean, if you're talking about the water electrolysis for hydrogen, because hydrogen can come from various sources. We are talking here mainly from the water electrolysis point of view. You have to look at the electricity cost. Typically, just for the audiences, the thumb rule is you have about 50 units of electricity, right? That 50 units of electricity is needed for 1 kg of hydrogen production. Now, in terms of Indian rupees, let's say, if you are at about 3 rupees per unit, right? I mean, you can go to 2.5, let's say, but that would be intermittent. Then you're already talking about, 125 rupees per kg, which is roughly about, let's say, $1.7 per kg, right? That's pure electricity cost itself. So unless that comes down, you can't really talk about, let's say, $2, $1 and various, the cost numbers. Then, of course, there are challenges of the supply chain. And it depends whether, the consumers become producers of the hydrogen, then the supply chain problem can be, sort of taken care of. But the supply chain will always be a challenge as long as the gaseous energy vector is concerned, right? I mean, it is a problem in the LNG, natural gas, but in hydrogen, it will be even a little more challenging. But I think that can be sorted out. Once you have the business, when you have the numbers right, I think those are the challenges which the industry, the human society will take care of. But until you get the numbers right, the large transformations, what we are talking about, the bits and pieces will happen. But running the entire economy, right, the economic activities on hydrogen and the renewables, electricity and all, would require you to meet a cost point, let's say, as of today, compared, equivalent of fossil. But we should also look at the other part. There should be a change philosophically in the thought process of every individual on this planet, that probably the sustainable energy would not be available at the same price point what you or we are used to in terms of the fossil, right? So you have to pay a cost for the carbon which we are emitting in the atmosphere today, and that cost has to be added on top of the fossil, and that's the real price. We have to make a peace with it. Until we do that as a society, I think we will always struggle on this cost and the barrier and all of that, right? So maybe the cost is 2 times of fossil, 3 times of fossil, I do not know. But we have to also work as an individual that, I might have to pay extra in this new world of new energy.
Thank you. Shalin?
He just very nicely mentioned cost. I mean, India, the mindset is, this is expensive. I just have one question to everyone in this room. What is your price? What is the value of your life? And what is the value and the price of the next generations that are going to come? Think about it and then decide what is expensive and how much are you paying for it.
Thank you.
As rightly said by Anurag ji, I would say that at the moment, the real problem with the hydrogen is definitely a cost. But there are 2 ways that how do you look at the cost? Are you looking cost as a benefit to the humanity with the cost of the clean energy or not? We are always learning by 2 ways. One is by the pursuit of the better standard of living and higher standard of living, or by some kind of huge penalties that humanity will pay, as Rashi also said. So I think the time ahead, there will be a penalty of using the fossil fuel will be increased, or the clean energy through hydrogen will have to come down. The time will say, but till the time, it will go with the pilot projects, it will go with the government incentive, it will go with the different kind of drives. But I believe as more and more inclusion will come, it is going to go down. So there are 2 ways. Either the fossil fuel price has to increase by 3 times, or the hydrogen price has to come down by 3 times. So I think it will merge somewhere in between the time to come.
Okay, Arnava.
Well, see, if we look at the entire journey of human civilization, how many times have energy transition / transformation taken place? 3 times. 3 times maybe. Wood to coal to oil and gas. And this is the 4th time. So is it going to happen in a year? No. Is it going to happen in a decade? Maybe not. Should we stop then? No. See, in Hindi, there is something which goes like, Jo dikhta hai, wo bikta hai. Literally translating to, if you can see it, it will be sold. With green hydrogen, it's the same thing. Build it, they will come. So we are building it, they are coming.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, hydrogen दिखता नहीं है. Gray or green. But your question was very short. I'll keep it short. What's the holy grail in the hydrogen value chain? It's the storage and transportation. You know, I'm not. I've heard every panelist. All of us are, you know, working towards cost of production, talking about that $1, $2 here and there. What is the delivered cost to the client or the end user is what matters. It has challenges in transportation and storage, and that is the whole holy grail at this moment, and we need to resolve that.
Thank you. Mr. Popli, you were already mentioning before, yes, all the things, but shortly, Holy Grail. What will be the next feed-in tariff for green hydrogen?
Next feed-in tariff.
No, feed-in tariff. You remember feed-in tariff? It was the scheme which was introduced in Europe that helped to boost, like a support scheme.
I don't know whether feed-in tariff would be possible in green hydrogen.
No, not the feed-in tariff, but similar thing.
Similar to.
Like
similar to. I don't know, because see, we are still pretty slow in creation of demand. We have to, as he said, we have to solve the challenge of transportation and storage. And what has been analyzed was that by 2040, it will be $1. By 2040, we will be equivalent to what is there in fossil fuel. So how do we accelerate that? And that acceleration would happen, I mean, how aggressively the policies and regulations help in demand side. Supply side, of course, the first policy addressed. But I think the demand side was not addressed. And because the challenge is that whatever cost goes up, if or whether the government bears it or subsidizes it, it goes to the consumer. All the products go to the consumer. And that is why probably they were not in a position to come out with what is to be done on demand side. Once that puzzle is solved, and probably they are seeing how the market moves on from here, they have come out with, and more deliberations are required, more brainstorming is required, and once the ministry feels that yes, this is the best way to move forward, because you will see that the steps taken by the government in wind, solar were, I mean, appreciated by the West also. The mistake that West did, we did not make in most of the cases, except for few small glitches in policy. So similar thing is for green hydrogen. And because we cannot afford to create assets which will not be viable in long term.
Okay,
We have done that in thermal also. We have done that in hydro also. So that should not happen, because nobody, I mean, at this stage of the learning
So you
curve is
should
too
not
high.
repeat the mistakes, but learn from the success story like in solar. Exactly. Vineet?
So I think fellow panelists, they have covered all the points. I'll just make it very, very quick and short. I think it's our willingness to adopt green hydrogen is the holy grail. Other than the cost, energy, storage, transportation, safety, that's the thing.
I would like to add a little, like this will ultimately go rather than into economical mode. It's a little, its answer is little philosophical or little conscious oriented. Like we all come here to attend this conference in our private vehicles run by the fossil fuel. We are sitting here and discussing about the clean energy in an air-conditioned environment, and we are again adding the footprints. So it's all about a conscious. So when the cost of conscious will be much more than the cost of the clean energy, then there will not be a question of how the hydrogen will be implemented, because it will be the need of the human life. And I think that will come. That's all.
Okay, thank you so much. And I think last but not least, this is holy grail from my side. As I mentioned, technology becomes commodity. The only thing which makes things happen is human to human. And I think that together we are stronger, the best friends forever, CleanTech and hydrogen industry leaders can make the green hydrogen dream happen. So let's come out. I would like to ask audience for applause for our speakers. Thank you so much. So first we make family photo with the speakers, and then, please come up here. And then we make a photo with also the audience. Mr. Popli, as we are our honorary chairman for India,